Yes, this is she, Jolene said. A long pause followed. They could hear the faint crackling sound of a man's voice on the other end of the line, a voice traveling across thousands of miles of wire and hope. Jolene's eyes grew wider and wider. You did, she breathed. You liked it. Another pause longer this time. Jolene sank onto a nearby stool, her knees suddenly unable to support her. She nodded slowly, a dazed, unseeing look on her face. Yes, sir. I wrote that one myself. About a cousin's truck. She listened intently, her knuckles white as she gripped the phone. A contract, the word was barely audible. To come to Nashville. Vera let out a small squeak of excitement, which Alice quickly silenced with a stern look. I don't know what to say, Mr. Rogers, Jolene stammered. I'll have to think about it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. She hung up the phone, placing the receiver back into its cradle with the careful, deliberate motion of someone handling an unexploded bomb. She stared at the phone for a long moment, then turned to face her friends. He wants to sign me, she said, her voice flat with disbelief. Starlight Records. They want to fly me to Nashville. They want to record a single. For a beat, there was only the sound of the rain. Then the diner erupted. Vera shrieked and threw her arms around Jolene, jumping up and down. Alice, her face breaking into a huge, brilliant smile, hugged them both. Even Earl, the sole customer, let out a whoop of delight. Only Mel remained silent. He stood in the kitchen window, the spatula hanging limply in his hand, his expression unreadable. He looked at the celebrating women, and then his gaze drifted out the window toward the long, empty highway that stretched out from the diner's parking lot, a road leading to places far, far away. Chapter 37. The offer was a stone dropped into the quiet pond of their lives, and the ripples spread out, touching everything. For Jolene, the initial shock gave way to a dizzying, terrifying vertigo. Her wildest, most secret fantasy had just presented itself as a tangible reality, and she had no idea what to do with it. One minute she would be floating on a cloud of pure bliss, imagining herself on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry in a rhinestone gown. The next, a wave of panic would wash over her, cold and sickening. Nashville. It was another world, a universe of professionals and producers and expectations. She was a waitress who knew how to handle a rush of hungry truckers and how to calm Mel down when he burned the bacon. What did she know about cutting a record? Her indecision became the diner's central drama. You have to go. Vera insisted, already sketching potential album cover designs on a napkin. One featured Jolene sitting on a bale of hay, cuddling a hamster. This is your destiny, I can be your manager. I've seen lots of movies about the music business. And you'll be fleeced by lunchtime, Mel grumbled, slamming a plate onto the counter. It's a scam, I tell you. They'll get her out there, take all her money, and leave her stranded in some bus station with nothing but a broken guitar and a half-eaten bag of corn nuts. He's offering her a contract, Mel not selling her swampland in Florida. Alice said, her voice a steady note of reason in the chaotic debate. She was Jolene's most steadfast supporter, but her heart was heavy with the thought of the diner without her friend. The easy camaraderie, the shared jokes, the unspoken understanding that had grown between them over the years, it was an essential part of the diner's fabric. To lose Jolene would be to lose a piece of their collective soul. Jolene caught in the crossfire of their opinions, and her own fears grew quiet and withdrawn. She would stand for long moments, a coffee pot in her hand, staring out the window, a lost, haunted look in her eyes. The question hung over her, over all of them. Could she really leave? Could she really trade the comfortable, chaotic certainty of her life at Mel's diner for the terrifying, brilliant uncertainty of a dream? Chapter 38. The heart of Jolene's dilemma wasn't just fear of the unknown, it was love for the known. The diner wasn't just her job, it was her life. The customers weren't just orders on a ticket, they were her community. One afternoon, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet elderly woman who always ordered the tuna melt on rye, took Jolene's hand. I heard the news, dear, she said, her voice soft. We'd all miss you terribly, but a voice like yours deserves to be heard by more than just us. Earl, overhearing, chimed in. She's right. This place wouldn't be the same without you, Jolene. But you got to take your shot. You don't want to be sitting here in 20 years wondering what if. Their support, instead of making the decision easier, made it harder. Leaving wouldn't just be abandoning a job, it would be leaving a family that was cheering her on. That night, long after the last customer had gone, she and Alice sat in their usual booth, nursing cups of tea. What if I'm not good enough? Alice Jolene asked, her voice a whisper in the quiet diner. What if Smiley Rogers was just being nice? What if I get out there and they all laugh at me? Then you come home, Alice said simply. You come right back here and we'll all be waiting. And you'll know. But what if they don't laugh, Jolene? What if they love you? What if you're as good as we all think you are? I'm scared, Jolene admitted, tears welling in her eyes. I've never been anywhere bigger than Phoenix. What do I know about a place like Nashville? You know how to be yourself, Alice said, taking her friend's hand. You know how to sing from the heart. That's more than most people in this world know. The rest, you'll learn. Jolene looked around the empty diner at the familiar cracks in the vinyl and the faded pictures on the wall. It was her safe harbor, her sanctuary. The thought of sailing out into the vast unknown ocean of the music industry was the most terrifying thing she could imagine. But the thought of never knowing what was over the horizon was she was beginning to realize even worse. Chapter 39. Mel's gruff refusal to engage with Jolene's news was a source of growing frustration for everyone. He deflected every conversation with a sarcastic remark referring to the opportunity as Jolene's folly or the Nashville catastrophe. Alice finally cornered him in the storeroom as he was counting cans of tomato paste. Why are you being so hard on her, Mel? She demanded. I'm not being hard on her, he grumbled, not looking up. I'm being realistic. This whole thing is a pipe dream. No, it's not, Alice said, stepping in front of him, forcing him to meet her gaze. It's a real chance, and she's terrified. And the one thing she needs right now is for her friends to be in her corner. All of them. I'm her boss, not her friend, he shot back, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. That's a lie, and you know it, Alice said softly. You're going to miss her, and it's eating you up. So you're pushing her away before she has a chance to leave. That's what you do, Mel. You hide behind that griddle and your big loud mouth because you're afraid of getting hurt. Her words hit their mark. Mel was silent for a long moment, the can of tomato paste in his hand. He looked small and vulnerable. She's a good waitress, he mumbled, finally. She's more than that, and you know it, Alice said, and left him alone with his inventory and his feelings. Later that day, Mel found Jolene wiping down the counter. He cleared his throat a loud, awkward sound, so he began polishing an already clean spot on the counter with his apron. You really thinking about doing this thing? This Nashville thing? I am, Jolene said quietly. He was silent for a moment, struggling for the right words. Well, he finally managed, you ain't the worst singer I ever heard. Coming from Mel, it was the highest of compliments. Jolene looked at him, a small smile touching her lips. Thanks, Mel. Don't thank me, he grumbled. Just don't forget who gave you your start when you're some big shot hotshot. He paused. And if you get out there and those city slickers give you any trouble, you tell them you know a guy in Phoenix who makes a chili so mean it'll make him cry. You got that. I got it, Mel, she said, her voice thick with emotion. He gave a curt nod, turned, and retreated to the safety of his kitchen. It wasn't a heartfelt goodbye, but it was a Mel Sharples goodbye. And for Jolene, it was exactly what she needed to hear. Chapter 40. The decision, when it finally came, felt less like a choice and more like an inevitability. Jolene stood in the middle of the diner during a quiet moment and announced, I'm going. The words hung in the air, simple, powerful, and world-changing. Vera burst into a fresh round of happy tears. Alice gave her a long, tight hug. Mel from the kitchen just grunted, but it was a grunt of approval. They threw her a farewell party the night before she was scheduled to leave. The diner was closed to the public, but open to their family of regulars. The place was packed a joyous, chaotic celebration of one of their own. They pushed the tables together and served a buffet of Mel's greatest hits. Earl gave a rambling, heartfelt speech about how Jolene always knew just how much cream to put in his coffee. Henry presented her with a framed, autographed photo of himself. Vera performed a dramatic, interpretive dance to what she imagined Jolene's first hit single would sound like. The main event was the presentation of their going-away gift. Mel brought out a large, awkwardly wrapped box. Inside was a brand-new, top-of-the-line acoustic guitar case. It's got a velvet lining, Mel announced gruffly, so your singing box don't get scratched. But that wasn't all. Attached to the handle was a custom-made, hand-tooled leather guitar strap. Alice had had it made. In the center, in glittering rhinestone letters, were two words, Mel's Diner. Jolene stared at it, her eyes filling with tears. She ran her fingers over the rhinestones. It was garish, it was over the top, and it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. It was a piece of home she could take with her, a reminder of the strange, wonderful, loving family she was leaving behind. "Now you won't forget us," Vera sniffled. "I could never forget you, Jolene," said, her voice choked with a happy, heartbreaking sob. Chapter 41. The next morning, they stood on the curb outside the diner, a small, loyal honor guard. The Phoenix sun was bright, the sky a vast, unforgiving blue. Jolene's suitcase sat beside her, the new guitar case clutched in her hand. The taxi that would take her to the bus station, the first leg of her journey to Nashville, pulled up. The goodbyes were a blur of hugs and tears and last-minute advice. "Don't sign anything without reading the fine print," Alice urged. "Call us every week. And don't forget to eat your vegetables," Vera sobbed. "And remember what I said about the chili mail hollered from the doorway." Jolene hugged each of them one last time. "I love you guys," she said, her voice thick. She got into the taxi. As it pulled away from the curb, she looked back through the rear window. The three of them stood there, framed in the familiar doorway of the diner, waving. They looked small and perfect, a snapshot of the life she was leaving behind. The car turned the corner, and they were gone. Jolene faced forward, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. The guitar case was heavy on her lap. Her heart was a painful, exhilarating mix of terror and hope. She didn't know what was waiting for her in Nashville. She didn't know if she would succeed or if she would fail. But as the suburbs of Phoenix gave way to the open highway, she knew with a certainty that quieted the fear in her soul that she was on her way. She was singing her own song, and for the first time in her life, she was singing it for herself.